Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Make Today Mammoth. I am your host, Dallas Hardcastle, and boy am I excited about this one. We are talking about the most sustainable, profitable, long-lasting, and best way of selling, which is through the power of unclosing. I can all but guarantee you've never ever heard of this before, and it will change the way you sell forever moving forward. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode. We are going to be talking about the thing that I have been teaching now for probably 20 years, and yet 99.9% of the planet still is not aware of it, and that is the power of unclosing. Friends, if this is your first time listening to our podcast, welcome sincerely. If you are a return listener, thank you very much. We super appreciate you as well. Truly, we're honored that you're here, and I mean that you're honored so much, and you're so appreciated. I know obviously there are so many options and so many things you can be listening to, and we sincerely appreciate and are honored by the fact that you've chosen to invest some of your time with us here today. Whether you are a first-time listener or if you have been here since the beginning, we ask you if you would like to go and rate and review and give us that 5-star rating. Just takes literally just seconds to be able to do it. That is a demonstration of just goodwill and a good gesture, which we appreciate, but it's just a way to pay it forward. However you maybe found this podcast, maybe that way of you sharing this podcast with somebody or you leaving that 5-star review allows it to get bumped up in the algorithm so someone else has a better chance of being able to find a real show with real content that's really actionable, that can make a big time difference, because we're here to help business owners and entrepreneurs be able to create what we call an owned experience. And that owned experience means that you have freedom over your time and your finances, because if you do not have one or both of those, then you just have a business or a job, or you're an entrepreneur, and you are enslaved by the business, because you either don't have the money or you don't have the time freedoms that you so deserve. So friends, on this episode, and this one may be a little shorter, we'll see how it goes, but we have, for 20 years, I've been talking about how closing sucks. Closing sucks. If you haven't heard the story before, I don't really want to get into the whole thing here today. But in short, many years ago, I was in college, went in, had somebody try to really super duper hard close me, like 45 minutes of me saying no, and them just continuing to, come on, there must be some way we can work this out. There must be a way that we can figure this out. Come on, there must be a conclusion. And what can we do to blah, blah, blah. And friends, if you don't know me, but I am a lover. But at that time I was standing up and I was reaching across the desk to try to grab this guy by his neck, because I was so enraged. So that really set an emotional marker on me, of course, for getting hard closed. And then a week or two later, I went to get my first summer job, and it was like I was in college again, and it was to install pools, and I could make like hundreds of dollars per pool that I sold. And at that time, that was like ridiculous, right? And the short version is that I went to this, it was either a half day or a full day training, honestly can't remember. And the guy sat there and just basically was talking about all these different ways to like close. And it was just scummy and dirty, and it felt awful. And I just, from that point on, I just hated the way of doing it. So then I began this journey at a fairly young age, in my 20s, of saying, I want to be able to figure out a way through every single different mental and emotional trigger, through every psychological influencer strategy, through body language, through words, through language of the mind, through neurolinguistic programming, neuroassociative conditioning, through metacognition, just every single different thing I could possibly do to be able to lead them down a path so that they ultimately would be asking me how we could get started, what could we do to begin working together. And I shared this, believe me, with everybody, because I was so excited. And to my surprise, everyone thought it was terrible. Everyone was like, you're dumb, you're naive, you're an idiot. This will never work. Selling doesn't work that way. You have to close people. It will just never work that way. Never, ever, 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 ever. Well, So that went on, and I mean, the industry I was in at the time, there was a bunch of, machismo and chest beating, cigar smoking. You're an idiot. You're a wimp. You're just afraid to close people. Like, that ain't the way it works, and blah, 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 blah. Well, I went on the following year to become the top salesperson in my company. Then I became the top salesperson in the state. And then I became the number 2 and then the number 1 top salesperson in the country, then 2 years in a row. How did that happen? Well, punchline, unclosing. So this is what I want you to consider again, and we're gonna make this as useful as possible in an amount of time that makes sense, because we could obviously talk about unclosing for days, as I've done in the past. But here's what I want you to understand. In a world that is going to tell you that you have to close people, in a world that's going to tell you that you need to kind of make it uncomfortable, that you need to squeeze people, that you need to kind of, ratchet and do these hard closing tactics, which I think are just filthy and disgusting. In a world where that is taught all the time, and if you think it's taught now, you should have gone back 20 years ago. If you're one of my younger listeners here, maybe you're in your 20s or 30s, and if you go back 20 years ago, I was the wimpiest of the wimps. I was the softest, good for nothing who was just afraid to close, is all I was to them. But to me, I understood that there was so much more to the positive, influential psychology of being able to lead people. I understood that creating these connections through common understandings, a language of the mind, of the way that we thought, that we spoke, that we interacted, that we moved, that all of these things had great value. And when we really paid attention, when we really paid close attention to that person we were in conversation with, when I wasn't waiting to say the thing, when people who are talking and you can tell they're just waiting to be able to say their thing. They're just waiting for you to shut up so they can say their thing. They're waiting for you to be able to hear them. They're wanting you to understand them rather than seeking to understand them. Them seeking to be understood. It changes the conversation when all of your energy, 100% of all of your energy, all of your faculties, all of your focus, everything you have, see, touch, taste, smell, is put into paying attention to them and how you can best serve them. How you can best serve them may be that they become a client. Maybe you can help them. But it also can mean in really deeply understanding who you are and where you're coming from and where you want to go. I'm not your best solution, but let me take you to the person or the place that can serve you best. It will change the trajectory of your business. Not only will your conversions go through the roof, sky high, when you're unclosing, when you're not seeking to close, you're seeking to understand them. They're seeking to be understood, right? They're seeking to be understood, so why not make that the goal, right? They say that in marketing. In marketing, it's not just to that you can kind of talk the way they talk or whatever it is that to demonstrate that you understand them. They want to feel heard and understood. So when we can do that in a scenario of unclosing, conversions go up. The people show up for the appointments, so the no-shows go down while the conversions go up. When we're using unclosing, the profits go up. So the conversion percentages go up and the profits go up. And the secondary sales or the back-end sales go up. And refunds go down. All of the positive things go up, all of the negatives go down. Why do refunds go down? Because you don't have these remorse buyers, these people that they associate psychologically a bad experience with. They remember. Believe me, I've been in there. You've been in there, I'm sure. I've been on this side where somebody was selling me into a program, and man, it was just unpleasant. And there most of the time I was saying no because it was just so damn unpleasant. But then there was some time, there was the one time where it was just unpleasant as shit, but I really, really, really thought I wanted to work with the leadership despite this idiot salesperson. So I wound up saying yes, but it stuck with me. And all I could think of that, ultimately now knowing what I know, is that they were taught this. The salesperson was taught it by the sales manager or the sales director, who was taught it by maybe the VP of sales or the operations manager, and or then finally ownership, the CEO, the founder, whoever it was that was in charge at that time. This is what was passed down, is that you gotta just squeeze them and put them into these uncomfortable things, and you just gotta make them say yes despite saying no and no and no. And it just created this weird energy, this weird wrinkle, this vibe that I never felt comfortable with. I never trusted, is really the word. I never trusted them, because they would later on say, oh yeah, we're just, we're here to be good and we're here to help and all this kind of stuff. But it just seems so incongruent because it was just about the transaction to them. It never seemed to me like the relationship. It was the transaction. So I don't want to go off too much of a tangent there, but refunds go way down because you have remorse buyers. You hard close somebody, and man, they may say yes today, but look out for tomorrow and in 72 hours and in a week and in 2 weeks when the little wrinkle, the little bump, the little something comes up that's not going the right way, and they're still harboring the way you brought them in, the way you hard closed them to come in there, the way you just freaking just squeezed them. You just twisted them into saying yes. And now a week later, 2 weeks later, and you're talking about goodwill and being great and blah, 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 and being a wonderful person and spreading cheer. And they're like, yeah, but you and your sales team were jerks. You treated me like crap when you brought me into this company. I've remembered that, right? Do you? So again, I could obviously, unclosing, this is not something, it's difficult to soundbite, but here's the takeaway I want you to have. If you are using a hard closing or some kind of a closing method now, take it out of your vocabulary. Please just remove it from your vocabulary and no longer think of closing, right? The words matter, right? If you're talking about closing something, you're talking about like closing a door or closing an opportunity or closing this thing off. I've never ever, say for 20 years, I've never thought about sales as closing. To me, it's always been the opposite. It's about opening. It's about opening the door, opening questions, opening understanding, opening conversations, opening awareness, open commonalities, opening goals, opening possibility, opening new futures. That's always been what selling has been to me. It's about all of the things that we can unlock and open. And then once we open one door, guess what? Like just think if you're standing at a door and you're closing it, boom, and you close the door. Well, it's closed. That's it. The door is closed. What if you open that door? What if you open that door and now behind that door, what if there's a hallway with like 10 more doors? You just opened the door, and now you're in a hallway and there's like 10 more doors. And now you walk up to another door and you open one of those 10 doors, and then there's like another hallway with like another 10 doors. Like, you unclose somebody and you bring them into your world the right way. You pull, you draw them in. You're not pushing them in. You're pulling them. You're magnetically attracting them into your world. Now, when I talk about the analogy of the doors, that sounds good, right? The analogy, you get the analogy. But what that means in real life is that this month, as I'm recording this right now, in the past month, 2 of my clients that I began working with, really it's been in the past probably 2 weeks, but this month, one was from a client that I had met, someone I met in 2018. Another one was somebody that I met in 2016. And as of the recording of this, that is 4 years ago and 6 years ago. people I met 4 and 6 years ago. Now, this is like relationship capital, right? Like I'm pouring into them. I'm giving way more. I'm giving and giving and giving and giving, and not asking for anything in return. Number one, but number two, unclosing is that they saw the way I acted. They saw the way I sold. They saw the way I treated people. They saw the way I was trying to uplift them. They saw the way that I was trying to move through this world by doing things the right way. So now we have these conversations where I'm not trying to close anybody. I am unclosing them. So those doorways, now the new doorway may be, now we get to do some more cool things together. Now we get into another business together. Now maybe I get to be an equity or a profit shareholder in one of their companies. Now maybe I'm being invited to be an investor in some other businesses. Now maybe we get into a real estate deal and we're doing some kind of a syndication deal where we're funding and putting in money together for a large apartment building. So maybe we're sharing through syndication 60, 80, 100 doors. But that never happens if you close somebody in the beginning, because you never get to see the first hallway, much less the second or the third or the fourth. So I hope this is landing on you and just how important it is. 20 years ago, I came up with this. I've been teaching it just almost every single day since then. And again, I know in the world that probably 99.9% of the world still isn't even aware that unclosing is really a thing. If you want to leave a comment or reach out to me or my team, and definitely leave a comment, and we can share more information about it, especially if we get enough about it. Maybe we'll create some kind of a training really around this. But unclosing will be the way to move profits up, move secondary sales up, move conversions up. Like all of the positive things go good, and people no showing because they hear it's a terrible experience, people having buyer's remorse, people wanting refunds, having it being more difficult, more challenging to work with the client once they say yes because you squeezed them to say yes. So now you need to convince them to continue doing other things because you convinced them to start working with you, and now you need to continue to convince them to do things. It starts this terrible relationship right out of the gates. So the power of unclosing will change your business, especially when it's done properly. So friends, again, I am so honored that you have chosen to be here with us today. My name is Dallas Hardcastle, and as always, make today mammoth, and we sure look forward to seeing you again here on our next episode very soon. Take care.